stay safe. From KCRG TV 9, this is First Alert Weather Now.
Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday evening edition of First Alert Weather Now. I'm meteorologist Corey Thompson.
And I'm meteorologist Messier.
Another chilly day out there, a little bit of sunshine early, clouds thickened up a little bit later on, but it's just quiet again, and we've got more quiet weather to come too.
Next couple of days look pretty great with more sunshine, which will make everyone pretty happy.
Yes, indeed. We'll take a closer look at where temperatures go over the course of that time, as well as your forecast for fun. And we've got a question this week for weather-wise that we get asked a lot, honestly.
Yeah, and you know what? You'll get to learn more about the weather team with this question, which will be a good amount of fun. But here's what you need to know first. So we have, again, a pretty quiet night ahead of us. The next big thing shows clear and cold conditions tonight. Then we're going to see more sunshine over the next couple of days. The middle of the week, a partly cloudy sky with still those seasonally cold temperatures. A slight chance for snow does come back into the forecast Thursday night. Then we have another chance to talk about for the weekend, though. For now, we just have a clear sky on our live pinpoint Doppler radar. So tonight you should be good to go. This is the view in Iowa City. We have temperatures in the teens and 20s, 18 in Cedar Rapids, 20 in Iowa City, and 19 in Washington. And it feels like the single digits and teens in the area. And that's what it is everywhere. It feels like 22 in Tama, feels like 9 in Fayette, and 15 in Mount Pleasant. As we head through the overnight hours, we'll have single digits expected by Wednesday morning. So you'll need to bundle up if you're heading off to work and school tomorrow, because 6 degrees is going to be cold no matter which way you put it. Northwest winds 5 to 10, Corey.
Yeah, hustling into the school building or your office tomorrow morning for sure, it sounds like.
Yeah, I'm really jealous of Justin because he's got this app on his phone. He can turn on his car from the weather lab. It's pretty nice.
Yeah, remote start is definitely a nice tool to have this time of year. This time of year, we still do have a decent amount of stuff going on around Eastern Iowa. A lot more indoor events, though, this time of year. Let's take a look at it with meteorologist Joe Winters and your forecast for fun.
Early January is with us, and as we move through the early part of January, you do want to get outside occasionally, but there's also some nice indoor events. Let's take a look at our forecast for fun. One way to get outside, of course, is to do some skiing, and although there's not a lot of new powder out there across portions of Iowa and Wisconsin, we do have lots of runs open. With the temperature staying cold enough, it's easy to make the snow. Sundown now has 21 runs open. Chestnut Mountain, 20 runs open. In Chestnut Mountain, there's a base of about 28 inches. Cascade Mountain up in Wisconsin, 47 runs. Now, walking forecast, yeah, it's going to be chilly, but look, it warms up a little bit Thursday into Friday. I think early on Friday there could be a few scattered snow showers out there, so just kind of watch that if you're out walking and that snow is out there. We have two big games coming up. One is tonight. It tips off at 7 o'clock, so not far from right now. Nebraska at Iowa. It's superhero night at Carver Hawkeye Arena. 23 degrees. Looks like a mostly cloudy sky, so traveling should be fine. Friends, family, or relatives headed to Iowa State for the men's game tonight. On the way home, it should be quiet as well. About 22 as the game tips off at 7 o'clock. That's Utah at Iowa State. The last matchup between these two teams, March 16th of 1996. And of course, Friday, you can head over to the Imon Ice Arena. The Rough Riders take on Sioux City. Puck drop is at 7:05. Again, a few flurries possible, but it looks like most of those will be earlier in the day. That's our look at the forecast for fun.
Now, your First Alert forecast with meteorologist Corey Thompson.
As Joe said, there isn't a ton to worry about in our weather forecast within the next couple of days. Your first alert, all 24 hours of the coming 24 hours look like they should be pretty clear of much trouble. View from our Iowa City cam shows a picture that involves a little bit of cloud cover up above and otherwise just those chilly temperatures. We're at 20 in Iowa City, 19 in Washington. Feels like the teens in most cases, though somewhat stronger breezes may push those wind chills down to the single digits, and we'll probably all be headed that way as we head toward tonight into early tomorrow. Otherwise, your satellite and radar picture does show a pretty good patch of clouds that's moving through. Arrived a little bit later in the day than anticipated, so we did enjoy a little bit more sunshine early on because of that, but it is trying to drop a few flurries out of it as well. It doesn't look like those are reaching the ground, though. We've got a decent amount of dry air in place. Area of high pressure off to our west, still giving us that quiet weather. We're still on the colder side of it too. Clockwise flow around this high that brings in northerly winds across the state, and that will keep our temperatures from warming up, at least for now. Now tonight we are expecting those single digit lows overnight on the thermometer. 4 in Charles City, 6 in Dubuque, 8 in Iowa City. That's under mostly clear skies for most of the night after we lose that cloud cover that we're seeing in places this evening. Otherwise, not worrying about too much. 7 o'clock, we still have those clouds, but by 10 o'clock, we'll start to see them fade. And by the time we wake up tomorrow, expecting a bit more sunshine. Through the day, more sunshine than not. The exception may be up in the far northeast portion of the TV9 viewing area up against the Mississippi River. Southwest Wisconsin, northwest Illinois may see some clouds rotating through the area. The rest of the area, maybe some thinner high clouds late in the day, but not a big switch. The one thing that does switch, though, is our winds. We're going to see those come from the west and then southwest by tomorrow night. That does eventually lead to a somewhat warmer air mass making its way into the state. Now, as that happens, we're not going to see our temperatures change that much tomorrow. In fact, we'll be in the low 20s across the area again. This is pretty similar to where we have been so far this week. Some spots a couple degrees cooler. Won't be a big, huge noticeable change, though, especially with those lighter winds. That's going to help keep us fairly steady during that time. Now, over the coming days, a bigger push of warmer air arrives on Thursday. That will tend to boost our temperatures a little bit. There will be a slight setback on Friday, but we will see a fairly neutral regime in terms of our winds as we head into the weekend. In fact, we may actually see a little bit of boost in temperatures during that time frame, too. Comes with a couple of chances of snow. There's a very slim chance for a snow shower later Thursday night into Friday. It does look like a more substantial push of moisture stays off to our southeast. In fact, a decent looking winter storm from Texas up through the Ohio Valley as this stretches off to the northeast. We'll catch the dry side of it, though, and we'll be fairly quiet as we head through the start of the weekend. By the tail end of it, it does appear now a second little disturbance will move through, coming in from the northwest, provides a chance again for some lighter snow as we wrap up that time frame. Could be a little bit of snow that sticks during that time, especially the farther north you go. Something we're gonna have to keep an eye on as it gets closer. But if you enjoy the chilly temperatures we're having right now, we've got more of them on the way. The third week of January as we head through the 14th through 20th rather. Climate Prediction Center favoring below normal temperatures pretty much across the entirety of the continental United States. Something to look forward to, again, if you prefer that chill. No extremes, though, at least as it appears right now in our 9-day forecast. Temperatures stay in a fairly reasonable range for this time of year. Sure, many of these days spent below normal, but a few of them above normal by a couple of degrees, and generally staying on the drier side. That is something that is worth keeping an eye on. If you love snow, well, we're in a deficit so far this year, and it looks like that will at least continue for the time being. January sure looks like it, too.
Yeah, it feels like it. Unfortunately, I'm not a huge fan of January. Highs in the upper 20s and low 30s is what we're in the forecast for this weekend, though. So this weekend will feel a little bit better than this week has.
Yeah, every little bit helps this time of year. That is for sure.
Well, we here love snow sometimes here in the Weather Lab, and we have other reasons why we like to forecast the weather too. That's what Vivian asks about in this week's WeatherWise.
Hi, my name is Vivian, and I go to Azington Christian Academy. And my question is, why did you guys want to be a meteorologist?
Thank you so much for that question, Vivian. We're going to get the answer from all of the First Alert Storm Team's meteorologists. Joe says he became a meteorologist because he decided to become one because of his 4-H club and watching other meteorologists on television. And Justin became a meteorologist. He wanted to become a forecaster because he grew up on a farm in northeastern Iowa, and he understands the importance of weather on farms and how it can impact a farmer's day, week, month, and year. And Corey, his reason for being a meteorologist is because he has a lifelong fascination with weather and the desire to understand weather. I became a meteorologist because I lived in a bunch of different places growing up, and therefore I was curious about why the weather and climate was so different and so unique in each place. For example, I spent a few years in Alaska, and then I spent a few years in Texas, and there was a lot of differences between the weather and climate in both of those places. And AJ, he became a meteorologist because he found the weather very interesting at a young age and was always wondering why and how different types of weather and storm systems form. So that was AJ's reason for being a meteorologist. If you would like to ask a question to the First Alert Storm Team, head over to kcrg.com/unews and we will answer it here on Weather Now. Corey?
A lot of consistency in those reasons in the weather-wise answer there. Very interesting to see. Temperatures over the next couple of days staying fairly consistent too, though notice the slight bump that we're going to see between Wednesday and Thursday. That's as winds shift to a southwesterly direction. We hold those through at least a good portion of Friday before they start to shift, at least temporarily, back to the northwest. Now, with a slightly increased wind, we do look at the possibility of a little bit of a reduction in wind chills. In fact, on Thursday, we're going to keep those in the low single digits as you wake up, and throughout the day, probably down into the teens. So even though we do see that air temperature number into the upper 20s, we're still going to feel on the chilly side because of that somewhat stronger wind. So something to keep in mind, looking at those numbers this time of year, you really do have to consider the wind before you head out. Now, of course, wind chills at this range, not really putting you at great risk for frostbite in a sort of short amount of time, but something just to keep in mind as you get ready to head out for the day. Now, over the next several days, we do have that slight uptick in warmth by the time we get towards Sunday. That does push us ahead of our normal temperatures by a couple of degrees through early next week. Bit of a setback, then a bit of a modest rise after that. We're seeing those ups and downs, but no big drop-offs, no big presses upward either. Kind of consistent. This time of year, you can get those bigger changes, and we just aren't seeing it, at least around here. That is one thing you can hang your hat on, because at least you sort of know what to expect day to day if it's kind of like the last day, the next day, looking ahead.
I certainly remember much colder starts to the month of January. At least we don't have wind chills in the -30s quite yet.
Oh yeah, for sure. And it doesn't look like at least anytime soon that we'll be facing that. I can't say that we'll get through the winter without it. Seems kind of unlikely just based on past experience, but we'll have to wait and see.
For now, we'll stick with those teens, 20s, and 30s.
Indeed, and we'll bring you the latest on what we're expecting through the rest of the week, especially as we look ahead toward that tail end of the weekend, that little bout of snow that we could face in tomorrow night's edition of First Alert Weather Now. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a great night.